You ever look at an ancient text, one of those long lists of names and numbers, and just think, man, this is dry? Well, today, we're going to take one of those lists from the book of Numbers and show you what it really is. The actual blueprint for building a nation right from scratch.
Okay, so let's just jump right into the big problem here. Picture this. You're in charge of hundreds of thousands of people. They're newly freed, they're wandering in a massive desert, and there's no government, no infrastructure, nothing. How in the world do you turn that crowd into a real nation? That's the challenge we're digging into.
So here's our game plan. First, we'll look at the command that kicked this whole thing off. Then we'll see how they counted all the fighting men and what those numbers tell us. After that, we'll uncover a really interesting exception to the rule. And finally, we'll put it all together to see how this one act organized an entire people. All right, let's start at the beginning, the divine command. You see, the solution to all this chaos didn't come from some committee. It was a direct, super specific set of instructions.
First, you got to get the scene in your head. It's year 2 after the Israelites bolted from Egypt. They're smack in the middle of the Sinai wilderness. And this is not a friendly place, right? It's harsh, it's unforgiving. That makes having some kind of organization not just a good idea, but absolutely critical for survival.
And here it is, the core instruction given to Moses, straight from the source. Take ye the sum, all that are able to go forth to war. You catch that? Right from the jump, the purpose is clear. This isn't a census to see how many people there are in total, it's a military draft list.
And the rules for who got counted, they were laser-focused. You had to be male, 20 years or older, and, this is the big one, you had to be fit for military service. This was all about figuring out their fighting strength, period.
So that leads us to our next section, counting the fighting men. Okay, so you've got the order, but how on earth do you actually pull off a census this huge, in the middle of a desert? Well, this was no two-man job, no way. It was a super organized, delegated effort. Moses and Aaron appointed a known leader from each of the 12 tribes. These guys were in charge of counting their own people, which made sure everything was accurate and orderly.
If you read the original text, you might notice that it keeps repeating phrases like, by their generations, after their families, for every single tribe. That's not just clunky writing. It's actually a deliberate technique to hammer home the point that this was a thorough, orderly count where every single person was accounted for in their proper family unit. Lineage mattered.
So what did they find? What were the results of this massive count? Let's check out the numbers for each of the 12 tribes, because this is where you really start to see the sheer scale of this new army.
And here they are. The first thing that jumps out is just how different the tribes are in size, right? You got a tribe like Manasseh with just over 32,000 men, and then you have the real powerhouses, which we're about to look at right now.
Looking at the data this way reveals the power structure that's already taking shape. I mean, look at the tribe of Judah, almost 75,000 fighting men. They are by far the biggest and most powerful tribe. This massive number kind of foreshadows the leadership role Judah is going to play later on. And when you add it all up, you get this: 603,550 fighting men. That is just an incredible number. Think about it. In one single administrative act, this group went from being a crowd of refugees to a structured nation with an army over 500,000 strong.
But hang on, there's a fascinating twist in all this data. Let's move on to the Levite exception, because there was one tribe that was deliberately, specifically left out of this military count.
So maybe you already noticed it. We're talking about the 12 tribes, but one of the most famous ones, the tribe of Levi, they're not on the list. What's up with that? Why weren't they counted with all the other soldiers?
Well, just like before, the answer is spelled out for us right in the text. The order to Moses was explicit. Only thou shalt not number the tribe of Levi. They were being set apart for a completely different job.
This makes the difference crystal clear. While the other 12 tribes were being lined up for war and for conquering the Promised Land, the Levites were given a totally different duty: to serve and protect the tabernacle.
And the tabernacle, this was the absolute center of their entire universe. It was the portable sanctuary, believed to be the actual dwelling place of God among the people. The Levites' job was to camp around it, take care of it, and basically act as a sacred guard, a buffer between the holy and the everyday. A job so important, it completely trumped military service. So, this brings us to our final section, a nation organized for purpose. Let's put all these puzzle pieces together and really get to the true meaning behind this whole census.
So, what did the census really do? It was so much more than just a head count. First, it created a huge organized military. Second, it firmed up the social and tribal structure, giving everyone their place. And third, by setting the Levites apart, it organized the entire camp, both physically and spiritually, around that sacred center, the tabernacle.
And here's why this is such a big deal. This act of counting wasn't just data entry. It was basically the founding moment of the nation of Israel. It's the point where a disorganized mob of former slaves was transformed, both on paper and in reality, into a nation with an army, a social order, a shared identity, and a divine mission.
And that leaves us with one final thought to chew on. This ancient story brings up a timeless question, one that applies to any group, any company, any country, really. What does it actually take to turn a crowd into a real community with a unified purpose? Is it all about structure? Is it about having a shared mission? Or is it something else entirely?